You know that 2TC achievement that's in the game? Well, yeah, forget about that. We're having 3 towers down, but we're going to go for another 40 rounds. Yes, it's the 3TC 140 challenge, or however you want to call it. Lord of the Abyss with with two particular spike factories. We're going to go with carpet spikes and super mines, and they're going to be within the radius of the Mermonkey for that sweet 40% pierce buff to the spike factories when we get to the Lord of the Abyss. And you know what? I don't fancy camo detection for my Mermonkey today. Today we're going to make some balloons freeze with the sharper prawns and the tidal chill. So as of today of this recording on the 22nd of January 2026, the Fightland servers are now no longer online. You can no longer download the game off of Steam. I'm not a fan of those kind of games, but for those who do like those sort of games and was really into Fightland, just hope that for the future that there might be something else on the horizon that will suit your needs. Just because it's not a game for me doesn't mean it wasn't a game for other people. And I think in this economy we forget that sometimes, certainly, something within that range is not made for me. It's not made for my my sort of style of gaming, but at the same time it doesn't mean that it's not for another person. It can certainly be for another person who is not me. We can actually see that you're not the only person that exists. Round 14, yes. Goth Warrior Cena, and just watch your step, okay? Watch where you're walking, or in the balloon's case, watch where you're floating. Yeah, the spike factories are going to be our lead solos and our camo solos. A lot of weight resting on their shoulders, or inside their factories. Basically, in the Industrial Revolution during the 18 or 1700s, whenever it was within Britain, I think every factory you worked in is a spike factory, because a lot of really horrific accidents happened within factories in the early days. Can 2000 towers defend what we've got going on here? Because I'd like to proc this and then start working towards that bigger stack. I just hope I've got the money in order to actually get the bigger stack, and then the other. Do I have the money? Trident efficiency? Perhaps we can with some Mermonkey upgrades, but then I'm a little bit concerned that we just botched ourselves because of the fact that we probably don't have enough money now in order to get the white hot spikes for round 28. Don't worry, we have our own revolution on the horizon. It's called AI, and it's here to take your jobs, and you're going to like it because Microsoft and other big companies will like to stuff this ideology down your throat that you're forced to accept. And to that I say, shut up. That's the exact thing that you companies want. You want to take away our rights as people because you think you're superior than everybody. Anyways, back to balloons, round 27. We went off tangent from balloons to spike factories to actual factories and to something else that is now plaguing the world. It is a digital parasite. There we go, 4600 from that. Although I will draw the line, if somebody were to say that AI can, let's say, find the cure to cancer in the medical field, I'm all for that, but not in the media space, where it's innately designed to replace people in the workplace. You know, people who want to have a profession in game design, or be an artist, or be a video editor, etc. And this spike factory here, as long as it's within the Mermonkey's range, I'm happy with that, is going to be our top cross pathing. Sorry, our top spike factory. But we are going to have it so that we can place down manually where we want the spike piles to be placed in. And I do hope that this is in range of tackling the Moabs, but not in range obviously to tackle the regular balloons. Yeah, this 3TC is recommended to me by somebody. I've forgotten which video it was and who did it, but to who that recommended me this combination, thank you very much. This is a combination which is definitely benefited by having the Lord of the Abyss on the field because of the PS buffs. I keep going about it, but sometimes people forget, and sometimes it's nice to be reminded about such facts about a tower. So when it's just Abyss Dweller, it's 10% buff, Abyssal Warrior is 20% buff, and Lord of the Abyss is 40% buff. Which is why you see quite a few maps having a 2TC done by the Lord of the Abyss and the Carpet of Spikes. Just because they both synergize very well. Carpet of Spikes deals with the lead problems, and normally you would grant camo detection for your Mermonkey. That is just that's just something that you would never ever want to skip out on. But I think with this I can avoid it just simply because I can. It also means that the only thing that will stop a Mermonkey Trident from being able to hit a regular balloon is if a regular lead is on the field. But camo leads and DDTs, the Tridents will just go right through them because it cannot detect them, since we have gone with the middle cross pathing. Before I proc any more rocks, I think I'm going to go up to Spiked Storm and Spiked Mines, or just Spiked Mines. You know what? Just Spiked Mines. I think that's good. Sometimes we are making more purple balloons because we only partially damage them using our middle path spike factory. Can you guess which one of these three towers are going to get the most pops? I'll give you a clue. It is the most expensive of the upgrades. That is the one that will get most of the pops. Alright, 49 done and dusted. Round 50. Actually, I think I need you to be a bit closer for you to affect Merv class balloons for the time being. You'll definitely hit ZMGs and if not BFBs. And then when balloons come back round here, after the spike pile has met their PS cap, then they will explode, affecting hopefully everything within that explosive blast radius. Sorry, just blast radius in this case. Saying two different words of the same thing. Yeah, good one, flare balloons. There we go, the spiked mines are affecting the Merps. Lovely. 55. Now, we're not going to proc the bottom right rock down here, simply because of the fact that once we actually get 100k, we're going to be too late in the game where we would actually be getting 60k from a round naturally. So we'll just not go for the bottom right rock and just instead go for every other rock. Dwayne the Rock Johnson. We're not super tight on when we should proc these rocks, so that's why I haven't been taking the rock mining too seriously. Because I am very confident in which we'll be able to do this. See, we're able to take out the regrowth ceramics because our tridents are not blocked by the camo leads if said tower cannot detect camo balloons in the first place. Also, we get more pierce because we have the middle cross pathing. So there's just something about the bottom cross path that is really nice at the moment for the Mermonkey. Like if you get up to 10 Echo Sense networks, you essentially cover the entire map on every single map there is within the game. Like I don't think there is a single map in which could actually avoid 10 Mermonkeys on the field with Echo Sense network. It's just a ludicrous amount of bonus range in which the Mermonkeys get at the moment if you get every single one of them to have the Echo Sense network. Imagine if there wasn't a limit and then you just get like a plus 100 limit, and like even in the bottom, even in one of the corners, is able to reach the opposite corner on the opposite side. So top left is able to reach all the way down to bottom right. You essentially have a sniper. 14,000 up to 13,000 and 95,000. Yeah, the Mermonkey is pulling the heavy work right now. Except when it comes to camos and leads. Ooh, this is very interesting. Would I need spike storms for this round? No, we had just enough. Pineapples down for 67. Yeah, we'll definitely have enough, so I'm going to invest in Spike Storm next, just simply because of the fact that we might need that spread damage for all of the balloons here. Especially like for round 70. But I am relying on the Abyssal Warrior to pop the majority of the rainbows and stuff here. Lay out a Spike Storm, and hopefully that is able to delay the camo regrow white so that we don't run out of spikes at the end of the map here. Because if you do the heavy lifting at the start of a round, then the spikes will do the heavy lifting at the middle and the end of a round, because you give them enough time to lay enough spikes. If you cover my 6, I can cover your 6. And when I say that, just look at a clock and see where 6 is. If you're pointing at 12, you can't see 6, but if you have somebody on your 6, they can cover your 6 and you can cover their 6. Camo, regrow, fortified ceramics. Yeah, let's just put every single kind of property and just put it on ceramics. Yeah, that's very good. Hopefully we have what it takes. We do. In a combination of 2-tower chimps like the biggest one and carpet spikes, you are incentivized to go with the middle cross path for the biggest one, because of round 61 being a regrow zebra nightmare. And if you don't have the additional attack speed, then you won't lay out enough shockwave damage for the big one to actually get through all of the zebras properly. Otherwise, you're just going to increase the amount of regrows on the screen if you go with burning stuff. Although with permaspike, it's you want the biggest, so you want burning stuff with the biggest one, because of the fact that with permaspike, there's only going to be 1 or 2 places in which it's going to be able to damage the bad, and you want to conserve those piles for as much as possible so that it's able to deal with the DTs and the ZOMGs, etc. And the biggest one in burning stuff has more single target damage. But the middle cross path here is more for crowd control. 78. And another big round for the combination of the biggest one and carpet spikes is 67, because you need to rely on the spike piles to actually land in appropriate places on the map so that it can pop or damage, as many of the camo regrow fortified ceramics on that round, so that then hopefully, they're down to a point where they're weak enough to be popped by spikes naturally, but also so that they don't regrow out of control and therefore you create more balloons than you started with at the beginning of the round. You can tell that some of these scenarios, I do talk a lot here about other stuff because of the fact that the combination we have so far is not something that you really need to put a lot of thought into. Also, you cover the exit well, and you are good when it comes to placing you in other aspects along here, and we can control where the spikes are deployed. You're going to be done on 82, so it's just, actually we'll get Lord of the Abyss now, which will help us out greatly for 81. Because now our spike factories get 40% additional buff rather than just 20, and B, you can clear out the super ceramics. Believe it or not, our worst damage dealer to ceramics when they're all at tier 5 will be carpet spikes. I think I lost myself halfway when I was talking about a good synergy between Lord of the Abyss and carpet spikes. Well, carpet spikes deals with the the lead problems of which Lord of the Abyss cannot deal with, and the Lord of the Abyss can deal with a problem that the carpet spikes has, which is decent ceramic damage. They both cover each other's weaknesses, while the Lord of the Abyss gives the carpet spikes another 40% chances of being able to take out a balloon because of all that pierce gain. Pierce, people forget, is just as important as raw damage. It doesn't matter if you have 1 million damage, but you can only fire once every minute, and you only have 1 pierce. It's like, you better make that shot count, because that reload time is very long. So another example would be Arcane Spike and More Glaives. They're both tier 4 towers, but they both do different things. On round 60, You would want to have both towers obviously, but the arcane spike does the majority of the work because of downgrading the BFB to Moabs and then ceramics after that. But on round 63, the Merglaives does literally all of the work because of its high attack speed and its high pierce. It's something that you really need to get in order to go through all sorts of different maps on Chimps mode, is a balance between high single target damage and then another tower that does not as much damage but has a lot of pierce and a lot of attack speed. Go away, DDTs. You are all not welcome here, and you will face my spiky wrath. And these spikes are white hot, the second hottest that they could ever be. The next stage would be blue hot spikes. 95. Yeah, if they were blue hot spikes, then they would do even more damage, because blue is the hottest color you can get to, and red is the coolest of fire temperatures, because blue stars in space are more hotter by a large amount than red stars, but the red stars are typically larger. Think of Uiscuti and VX Canis Majoris. I think they're the two largest stars which are known at the moment from our observations. See, we're nearly 100,000 now, and it's not worth going down here because all we need is another 35k to get 2 super mines. So that could be like a challenge on which you could do. Get that done and dusted, and then by 118, then you're guaranteed to buy super mines, but you have to encounter lots of DDTs between this point and 118, and I doubt both carpet spikes and spikes mines will be able to do that. Well, someone could probably prove me wrong on that observation. Okay, round 100. Carpet spikes will do the majority of the work here, leaving, well, actually carpet spikes in this to do the rest of the work here. So you're at 1 million. You're, oh my gosh, you've taken the lead actually. But you're gonna have yourself some competition very soon. And the majority of the pops between 6 and 140 are past round 100. That's sort of a thing that we have going on here, and it might be time to move you down here as a sort of a temporary permanent spike sort of thing. You want to have it so that you have as much spikes at the back of the map as possible, and obviously that's not really possible when we have carpet of spikes laying out everywhere, but that's kind of the purpose of that, to do that job. Lord of the Abyss is going to help at certain times, the spiked mines will help out. Also, if you go with the bottom cross pathing, the spikes actually last for longer as well, so it suits this role better as being a last line of defense. If you actually have them up to begin with, it takes them more time to expire. And would you, oh my god, that's actually really close to expiring properly. Yeah, this is going to be the hardest part of a run, which is like trying to survive up until when we can actually get through all of this. And this is not looking good. This is really not looking good. But luckily, Lord of the Abyss is doing decent work against all of this. And also the freeze is proving invaluable at the moment at halting non-Merl class balloons from being able to advance. I do wish actually that the ink is more effective when you go with Tidal Chill, or at the very least the sharper prawns, there we go. I knew it was prawns, but I forgot which word it was. First word or second word. And we have ourselves spiked mines going up now. The true biggest explosion of the entire game is here. Actually, I think the Tsar Bomber produces the biggest explosion. Now, it's not the biggest one, despite the name saying that the biggest one produces the biggest of explosions. Now, the Tsar Bomber does that. We are what you would call in the late game now. We've got 32 rounds left to disintegrate. The problem with a perma spike and super mines combo with Lord of the Abyss is that the mid to late game, you're going to really struggle when it comes to dispersed damage with the spike factories, because they're both really reliant on One of them is going to be at the back of the map. The other one needs to be sort of near the center so that it can actually do damage against the balloons on the screen. But if you have two spike factories that essentially does the same thing, obviously one of them does more damage and the other one lasts for longer, then you're essentially having two spike factories that do the same role. Whereas these two do very different roles, so therefore we're able to deal with certain type of targets more quickly. Continuing on about Fightland, I do hope that the developers at the very least had fun developing the game and gotten some experience out of developing that game, because I think the last thing that a studio wants is obviously for a game to fumble like that. But as well would be just as worse is if nothing was gained out of that experience. Because it's all well and fun, you know, pointing at a huge corporate entity and seeing a game like theirs fumble, because mainly it's not down to the developers, but it's down to the publishers making poor choices just for the sake of making money. And at the end of the day, you've got your stakeholders to please, but sometimes stakeholders are not pleased because the product itself is bad, but then stakeholders are pleased because it's released as soon as possible and you're racking the money in regardless of the quality of the game. And over time, more and more companies are starting to not properly develop games because you have the excuse that you can push out updates, so therefore your games can be delayed when it comes to their polishing because you can push them out. Whereas back in the day when it was just the original Xbox and the PS2, there wasn't such a thing as regular updates. You either had to make your game correct from the get-go, or you will have permanent bugs in the game in which were not intended. But because there's no such thing as updates, then therefore those features which were not meant to be in the game are actually permanent features because there's no such thing as a patch. I think games back in the day were designed with more quality control and assurance because you had to get it right from the get-go. So there are companies out there nowadays that don't have a price tag on their game, but they rely on all of the microtransactions that goes on throughout their games, so that then they do make money from all of those microtransactions. And not all microtransactions are infinitely, like, you can buy it as many times as you like. Let's say for this game, the microtransactions that you only buy once are like Frontier Legends, Rogue Legends, the skins pack. But there are other ones which you can buy as many times as you like. Let's say more monkey knowledge points or more monkey money in order to be able to you know, buy your powers and stuff like that. And also like tier 4 insta monkey packs. Those ones are ones which don't have a only one time you can purchase this DLC sort of thing. I mean, you could create multiple accounts or have multiple computers playing the same game under different accounts, and therefore you can buy the one-time purchasable thing multiple times. Why you want to do that though? Well, I suppose the exception to that rule is if you unfortunately got the leaves of death on your account, and therefore soon unfortunately your account will be banned, which is kind of why I don't like playing mods for this game. Not because I don't like the idea of mods, but I just know that from Balloons' experience of having mods on your main account is that your account has the likely chance of being flagged as altering the game in a certain way, even though mods should not really conflict, unless of course the mods themselves can bypass restrictions that would let's say you can use mods within a boss scenario that gives you a massive advantage over somebody else. Obviously that is a big red flag, and that you should not do that. Like, let's say on the leaderboard, and that's how some people can cheat their way to number 1. Not everyone does it, but I'm just specifically talking about those who do mod their games so that then they go on the top of the leaderboard, and we need to move our spiked mines so that they are further back so that then the ZMGs do not get to them. Although at times they may need to go to them. We went through the bulkiest round of the game with no problems, but this round seems to be a problem. Come on, we can do it. Carpet spikes, you need to work overtime to be able to deal with all of these these Moab problems. Come on, we can do it. We can do it. Thank you. Do not run out of piles, super mines. Yeah, I'm a big fan nowadays of 502 over 520 super mines. I just find that having more control over your spike pile placements, and also each spike pile having more pierce naturally, and having a longer amount of time to last on the field, is better than just laying all of your spikes out sporadically. Although that's kind of forced to with white hot spikes so that we actually do something against DDTs. Another thing that people forget is that the DDT has 3 different properties. It has camo, it has lead, and it has black. So you may find that you have a solution towards your lead problem with explosive, but then it's got to be able to go through both black and lead immunities. So frigid solves that problem, fire solves that problem, plasma solves that problem, normal solves that problem, acid solves that problem. Glacier freeze, or sorry, metal freeze solves that problem. Glacier metal freeze solves that problem. You know what, since we got the money, why not? We're going to invest. We won't get anything out of it though, because it'll be too late, but I'm doing it anyways. Get through all of these. There we go. So you're at 12 million, you're at 5.4, and you're at, oh my gosh, you're doing the least amount of, oh my gosh, this is a huge round right here. Come on, pop all of those pesky DTs. The explosions are reaching, I think, reaching all of a circle here. It's only 132 from my memory that we had problems with throughout this run. And aside from that, this was a deathless run as far as I can remember. Come on, we can soften up this bad, and then hopefully the remainder of it will be dealt with by the super mines. Get through all of that. Lovely jubbly. Come on, thank you for hitting the bad. I think some of the spikes back here can hit the bad, although it doesn't really matter. Although you fortified ones are the, there we go. They were the last hope for the balloons, and we scored through all of those like if they were nothing. So anyways, super mines with over 13 million pops. Are you surprised though? Because of this thing's huge, thick-ass explosive radius. We got over 700,000 pops here with just 3 towers. It is possible to do 2 towers. I'm not too sure if there's any 2-tower combos to 140 that are possible with super mines. Like, you really need that carpet of spike support throughout the entire run because of, like, just sporadic damage across the map. And super mines is just too concentrated, but it's explosive. It's anything but concentrated. It is very dispersed and very powerful. But you were a great ceramic killer and pierce giver to our spike factories. I mean, you could obviously do this as well with the perma spike as well, but I honestly think that would contribute the least amount of pops, unless of course you were always placing your perma spikes into the circle here. But at that point, it's like, well, why can't you just rely on these 2 towers to help in the middle of the map, and then the perma spike be a back guard? And you don't want those precious perma spike piles being wasted on something that will not help you get through an extra few rounds. So there you go, everybody. That is the 3-tower chimps combo of Lord of the Abyss, carpet spikes, and super mines. A very, very cool combination. I would say you can go with 502 Mermonkey, and with the spiked, super mines, it's optional if you want to go with the middle cross pathing for additional attack speed, but I just prefer that control over the speed where the spike piles are laid out. And with carpet spikes, you are restricted to just the top cross pathing, because the bottom cross pathing doesn't provide damage to lead balloons, and they're kind of important throughout the run. And additionally, throughout this run, we did have frozen balloons. So you don't want those spike piles just going to waste because of an odd frozen balloon. But thank you all so much for watching, everybody. Please let me know what you thought of the video down in the comments sections below. And if you'd like to support me any further, alongside liking, commenting, and subscribing, then use my Create Support code whenever you are in the store buying stuff, using code, using your card. A tiny slice of that pie goes to me and my in my progression to finding a solution to my yellow balloon problem. But I've been trying to find that for about 3 years now, and I still die to them a lot. Thank you all so much for watching, everybody, and take care of yourselves.